What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Back on the Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Countercade project. Finished up the bezel. Started with a piece of Lexan and routed a groove so that we could have access to the buttons for the monitor. And the custom graphics really finished this off. Now, because the space under the control panel got a little crowded, I decided to go ahead and mount the speakers up top. Interested to see how this is going to sound. Okay, now it's time to mount that lit marquee. This kit comes to us from This Ability Upgrades. Angel over there, did the lit marquee for my Raiden 2 Countercade. It looked really great, and this one is no exception. He hit it out of the park. Here you can kind of see the clearances. The marquee fits up nice against that bezel. I wanted to have a switch on the power side to be able to kill the entire Countercade as an assembly, so I'm just finishing up that connection. I like to solder all my joints where I can, so you can see I've pre-tinned the terminal on the switch. We're going to go ahead and tin the wires also. I use a little bit of flux whenever I do this. Make that final connection. Then you can see how this is going to look. Now, because these terminals are sort of open and really close together, I like to add hot glue as kind of like an insulator, just to keep the risk of short circuiting to a minimum. And this tends to work out pretty good. Now, do what you can to be as neat as possible, but I can't seem to make this not look like a wad of chewing gum. In this project, we're going to have two different voltages. So these two wires are going to go to the primary side of the transformer, and then the other pair that I'm soldering in here are going to go directly to the monitor itself. And because we're going to land these on screw terminals, the solder joint is going to be a little bit better for that screw to bite into. It's going to give you a better connection. Okay, now here's a closer look at what we're doing on the power side. These two wires are going to come in and feed the primary, and you can see I have 12 volts and 5 volts. 12 volts for the monitor and 5 volts for everything else. And you can see if you take your time and line these up, loosen up the screws beforehand, it'll just slide right in. Alright, now it's time for my handy dandy ratcheting screwdriver. You want to snug these down. Don't over tighten them, but definitely want to make sure that this is a good snug connection. And then now we'll plug the 12 volts directly into the monitor. Now let's take a closer look at all the wiring so you can see what I got going on here. So obviously the 12 volts come in, feed the primary side of the transformer, and it also splits off to feed the monitor. And now on the secondary side of the transformer, we have 5 volts that's going to branch off. One's going to go up to the LED strip for the lit marquee, and then the other one's going to go down here through an adapter into the back of the PlayStation TV. The adapter is a 4mm jack, sort of specific to PlayStation, Sony, and all their connections. This is a 6-inch HDMI cable you can find on Amazon. Also have another 6-inch USB cable for the encoder. So these are not custom, but they are kind of tough to find. Now, because the PlayStation TV does not have native support for USB controllers, the USB cable is plugged into a Titan 1, the console tuner. This is made for a bunch of different consoles and allows you to do some custom mapping for buttons, but it really gives us the ability in this case to use our encoder. There's nothing really crazy going on here. Just plug this into the PlayStation TV and then plug the supplied USB cable into it. Download their free software and you'll be good to go. But that thing is definitely the key to making this whole project work. Double-sided tape holds the PlayStation TV against the wall of the Countercade, and you still have access to the game slot and the memory card slot on top, as well as the power button. But as soon as you put power on the PlayStation TV, it's going to come on. Looking at the back panel, you can see the switch that I'm using, and I'm also still retaining that 5.5mm quick disconnect that Arcade1up supplies with their 3/4 scale arcades. It's always a really good idea to verify the voltage on your transformer, so let's make sure that we're feeding at 12 volts, which we are. And then the more important question is, are we getting 5 volts out of the secondary? And sure enough, we are. So we're good to go. So let's double check all of our connections. Now that we know the voltage is correct, we can go ahead and button up the back side of this console and then see if all of our hard work paid off. Now I wanted to show you an unedited power-up. You just flick the switch on the back. There's nothing else you need to do. You don't have to reach in there and turn on the PS TV. It's just gonna boot up the monitor, and then you'll see we have the HDMI signal. The PlayStation TV is on. Just give it a few seconds to load up, and then it should launch the main menu. And this will take you to your game selection. Now I actually have the game cartridge installed in the PlayStation TV, but if you've downloaded it, this should also work. Now it's important to note that not all PlayStation Vita games are going to be compatible with this PlayStation TV. Games like Mortal Kombat, well, unfortunately you're not going to be able to play, which really sucks because that's definitely a fighting game I'd like to play on this console. So let's exit out of here, and then unfortunately another one you can't play is Street Fighter vs. Tekken, which would have been a really good game. But there are a lot of games that do work with this, and one of those games happens to be Dead or Alive 5 Plus. One of my favorite games. Let's go with Hitomi, and we'll get her suited up for battle. What? She likes to fight in a bikini. Now this is actually a little bit deceiving. The camera makes it appear to be a little more washed out, but the display is actually really sharp. The blacks are nice and black, and I mean the colors are vibrant. There's not really any screen tearing or weird lag. And because this is based on a PlayStation Vita, it's not just PlayStation Vita games that you have access to. Depending on whatever library you happen to have, you also have access to PSP games. And that also includes some of the collections that were available on the PSP, like this Capcom Classics collection here. Also the SNK Volume 1. They never came out with a Volume 2. But the SNK Arcade Classics is on here, which is another, I mean, this is a great form factor for that. Love seeing the little PSP icon there. And then of course you're also going to have access to PlayStation 1 games. I've had a PlayStation account for, God, forever. I think I started downloading games in 2009. I still have my PlayStation 3. I still have a Vita and several PSPs, but it's actually nice to, find a good home for my PlayStation TV. It really was just sitting on the shelf, not doing anything because of the limited, selection of games that I could play on the TV, and the crossover I had with the PlayStation 3. I really didn't use it that much. So this is just a great way to incorporate it into a project. Now the downside is if you don't already have one, to try to find one of these on eBay is going to be expensive. As of the filming of this episode, they're currently going for about $200 on eBay. And then there's also the cost of the Titan 1 console tuner that was $80 on Amazon. So, it's not necessarily a cheap project, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. And it's not just the console games. Who else remembers PlayStation Minis? They were basically mini games designed to compete in the mobile space. So, you can rock Tetris on this thing. I think depending on your games library, this is going to be just a really versatile little arcade machine. So if you've been in the Sony PlayStation ecosystem for a while, if you've got some of this hardware laying around, put it to good use. And this is something that doesn't really modify or destroy the console itself, so you get bored after a while, you just unplug this, put it back on your shelf, and then do something else with your Countercade. It's kind of what we do as modders and customizers. But listen, I really have enjoyed this. I've just loved the way it went together. I was impressed with the simplicity of it all, and I had a great time building it. But that's enough about what I think. I want to know what you think. Let me know down in the comment section below. What do you think about all this? And before I let you go, on your way out, hit that like button and please do consider subscribing. But now it's time for me to shut it down, and I will see you next time.